Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Intimate Conversations with me, Anna Sansom, and my guest today, Rebecca. So we're here today to share some of what we think is interesting and fascinating about the whole world of sex and sexuality, how we explore it, how we express it. And this is something that I've written about and talked about in my book, Desire Lines, but it's also something that I felt was really important to talk about, to have conversations about. And so this series of intimate conversations is basically an opportunity for me to talk to really cool people who might have a personal interest or a professional interest in this whole world of sex and sexuality and who we are as sexual beings, what that means in our lives, and a whole range of other things. So I'm delighted today to introduce Rebecca. And I've known Rebecca for, I think it's about 6 or 7 years now. And we met at a conscious sexuality event. And I don't know if Rebecca will remember the first time she saw me, but I do remember the first time I saw you, Rebecca. And that's because we were in this group workshop. There was about 25 people sitting around in a circle, and you were kind of opposite me. And the thing that I really noticed was, as you sat down, you had a sheepskin rug with you, you had blankets, you had a comfortable back jack seat thing, and I had one poxy little cushion that I'd borrowed from the event organizer. And I remember sitting looking across at you and thinking, I want to feel that comfortable, and not just physically comfortable with my cushions and blankets, but I wanted to feel as comfortable as you looked in that environment. So for me, this was one of the first times I'd attended any kind of workshop event like this. Right. And I was feeling really pushed outside my comfort zone. Yeah. I didn't know anybody there, and I just sort of turned up to see what happened. So I have this lovely, strong memory of seeing you there. And then, of course, we had the opportunity to talk throughout the day, and we've actually had the opportunity to meet up at other events and on other social occasions as well, which is very wonderful for me. So I am delighted to have this opportunity to talk with you. And I should just say that Rebecca and I had a chat last week, and we realized that we had so much to say and we both got so enthusiastic about everything we had to say that it felt like it was a great opportunity just to share some of it. So I wonder, would you be happy to say a few words about who you are and why you wanted to take part in this intimate conversation with me?
Yeah, sure. Wow, what a glowing introduction. Thank you so much. First about myself, I'm 45 and single and lesbian. During the day, as it were, I work as a translator between German and English. In terms of my family background, I grew up in Germany, but I also spent a long time in the UK, and so that's kind of how I came to be a translator, was having grown up with 2 languages. When I was a young woman, I identified as bisexual, and so I used to have this little jokey one-liner about myself, which was bilingual, bicultural, and bisexual. Right. And so, and that's we'll sort of come back to that, but some of that's kind of a theme for my life. I was thinking earlier, can I come up with a new one-liner, a new little pithy thing that I can say about myself, because things have changed in my life, and so now I'm more location-independent lesbian linguist. I don't know. I mean, how many times have I said, pulled the cunning linguist joke, right?
Yeah. Well done.
Crappy puns are free of charge.
Thank you. Always welcome.
So, about taking part in the intimate conversation. Well, I thought of 3 little things I could say. One is that I was recently a guest on another podcast, and I enjoyed myself so much that I essentially put out a call saying, hey, who wants me on their podcast? And Anna said, hey, me.
Yes, please.
Kind of semi-related to that. So I'm quite an introvert. And when we were speaking last time, you said you were one as well. And the thought that came to me was, so I don't know how it is for you, but for me, I find that I sometimes need a little bit of a reason to speak to people. I like to have a little, like, you know, you have information about this, please can we talk about it? Or, you know, we are going to this thing, so that gives me a reason to talk to people. And so that's, you know, always helpful to have a little reason to re-engage. And on another sort of deeper level, I'm also currently interested in exploring my voice a little bit more. You know, my voice as a voice, but also, you know, what I want to say about things. So that sort of, you know, it ties in nicely with where I'm sort of going in life generally. So,
Thank you. Well, I'm delighted that you agreed to come and have this chat. I really do appreciate it. And I mean, I do resonate with a lot of that. You know, my preferred modality is writing, and so having opportunities to talk and use my voice is a little bit of a push outside my comfort zone, quite a big one sometimes. And I think I was also really aware that, you know, I in Desire Lines, I kind of wrote about these opportunities and these different experiences that I'd had.
yeah,
But I mean, that's only ever my experience, my voice. And I think the thing about sex and sexuality is that we are so unique. Each of us is so unique in how we experience it, how we choose to express it, how much it features in our lives or doesn't at different points in our lives. And so it feels really important to me to have many voices,
yeah.
many voices giving their stories, sharing their stories. So yeah, it's just a delight to get to do this with you. Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and of course it is also a slightly taboo topic.
Oh,
You know, it isn't part of polite conversation. We don't get to sit down with the family and have these chats, really, do we?
exactly. And I mean, I guess, you know, because we have met at conscious sexuality events
Right.
where it's like everybody's there for the same purpose, which is
Yeah.
to explore this stuff, which kind of just opens up all those opportunities and kind of pulls the curtains back on all that taboo. But you're
Yeah.
right, in polite conversation, we don't get to, or if we do, it's always through one specific lens or
Yeah.
several sort of mainstream lenses that may
Yeah.
not resonate with individuals.
Right.
And I guess
Yeah.
that kind of links me into one of the things that I've been asking everybody in this series,
Hmm.
which, you know, I've called these intimate conversations. But
Yeah.
what I'm really curious about is that word intimacy,
Mhm.
and what intimacy actually means to you. So
Mhm.
what that word means, or what that experience, or however you might define intimacy. So there's an
Yeah.
opening gambit. What is intimacy to you?
So, two words come to mind when I think about intimacy, and one is authenticity,
Mhm.
which is, I think intimacy is only possible when I can be truthful with myself first and foremost, but also in general. I can't be intimate if I'm wearing masks or if I'm hiding. So authenticity is kind of a big one there. And the other part of it for me is connection.
Mm,
So to me, intimacy is a method and I guess a modality of connecting with people. So I can be intimate with myself, yes. But more generally, I think of it more as connecting with another person or people. And what that requires for me is a non-judgmental space.
mhm,
Where I'm allowed and permitted to be authentic and don't feel judged or shamed
mm,
for my authentic self. Um, and I think another sort of connotation of intimacy for me is this sort of idea of secrets and privacy. You know, if somebody is being intimate, they're revealing themselves to me,
mm,
and that to me is a private experience that, you know, I have to be really mindful about how I discuss that, or, you know, the fact that I don't share it with other people, and that heightens the experience of intimacy for me
mm,
because it's personal and it's in the present moment.
mm.
Yeah, so those are the things I would say. What's your favorite answer at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I've been nodding away because I agree with everything you say, and I'm really struck by like intimacy is private and personal, and the things that we don't share publicly. And here we're
Right.
talking. Um, but I guess for me, um, presence is probably like for me, presence is one of the key elements of intimacy. So I can't be intimate with anything, with myself, with my surroundings, with another person, unless I'm actually being present to that moment and kind of fully consenting and fully committed to experiencing that moment.
Mm.
And I think about intimacy in the broader sense as well. So not just sexual intimacy
No.
or emotional relationship intimacy, but I'm thinking about um, when I'm in the natural world. And
Mm.
I had this amazing opportunity a couple of weeks ago to go and swim in a river. I say
Oh,
swim, I
beautiful.
kind of went a little bit of this, and went, oh, I'm in a river. But to have that intimate connection with the river and with the surroundings and with the sensation of the water on my body and with that sort of nervous excitement of being in an environment which felt incredible but also a bit daunting and scary because it was a wild place and those kind of things. So for me, intimacy spans a whole range, I guess,
Yeah.
of of experiences, opportunities, ways of being, and it's something that I don't share with everyone. Absolutely,
Hmm. Hmm.
those are chosen moments, chosen experiences.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and so I think like consent and boundaries and things like that really come into play. Um, and without them, then there can be a hesitation around
Yeah.
around being authentic, having those
Right.
connections, the things that you talked about as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it then doesn't feel safe to be vulnerable if the boundaries aren't good
Mm,
and can't be trusted.
mm,
Yeah. So, it's interesting to have, semi-public conversation about intimacy. And, one of the things that I've learned, including from the kinds of workshops that we met at,
mm,
was to be very mindful about what I do and don't share, which is to stay within my own experience, not to share others or report others, what I can see of their experiences, because of course I don't know exactly what is happening for them. I only see the outside, right?
mm.
um, and I think maybe intimacy, but with a specific person allows us to um, give a little glimpse more into the inside of what is happening.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, and what a
which is
privilege that is.
right.
What a privilege. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
to have someone trust us with that and to trust
Right.
ourselves with that
Yeah.
self intimacy as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah. Straight in there with the juicy bits.
Yeah, and I'm aware that we've both now referenced these workshops and events that we'd
Yeah.
attended, and um, I know for me those were an important stage of me kind of reconnecting with a broader world of my own sexual expression and a way to explore. And I haven't been to an event like I kind of did a really intensive 2 years of going to events and meeting people and trying new things and learning new things and training in new things. And then that was kind of enough for a
Okay.
while. And
Yeah.
um, recently, and I think it's partly because of the current situation we're in with lockdowns and COVID and the lack of ability and opportunity to attend things like that and meet up with people in person. Recently, I started craving some of those experiences
Mm-hmm.
again, but for
Mm-hmm.
quite a while, I was kind of satiated. It was like,
Yeah.
oh, I've had this time of expansion, and now I just need space to integrate.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Important.
yeah, but when we spoke last time,
Yeah.
um, I was kind of aware that we'd both had these journeys which have spanned more than just a short space of time,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
that these have been really influential in who we are now and
Yeah.
where we are now. So I
Yeah.
wonder if would you be happy to share a bit about your journey and what some of the
Yeah.
key or significant moments have been from
Mm.
you know, because you've already said, you know, how you identify sexually has changed. Uh,
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
your 3 B's to your 3 L's. So I'm just wondering, would you be happy to share a bit about what
Yeah,
that's
thank
like
you.
for you?
Yeah, thank you for that invitation. So I think well, what something I jotted down earlier when I was thinking about, you know, this conversation was that you know, I've had a sort of journey with sexuality and spirituality and desire since basically I was old enough for it to be legal. She says, covering her bases carefully.
Yeah.
um, so yes, just going back to your first impression of me.
Mm,
So I had been on that specific track of workshops and exploring since about 2010.
mm,
So yeah, I'd had a few years under my belt to get comfy there.
yeah.
But you know, really, it started much earlier for me. So yeah, so one particular strand of my journey was is around sexuality, and so I when I was still in school, so a teenager, I kissed a girl and immediately decided that that meant I was bisexual. Thank you, please. No further conversation, you know. And that's kind of, you know, that's a version of myself I stuck with for quite a long time.
Mhm,
I had a variety of relationships with men and with women and with others, and um, similarly, I journeyed through different stages of monogamy, polyamory, one night stands, short relationships, long relationships, marriage, divorce, you know, try everything, see what sticks, seems to be the overall philosophy.
mm,
And where I'm at with that now is, so I had an initial coming out as bisexual, and then in my 40s, after splitting up from my ex-husband and settling in a new country, I had another coming out initially to myself as lesbian, and that was an interesting kind of experience, because I'd been, you know, from the get-go, I'd been so open to all experience and to just kind of, you know, trying things and seeing how I went with it. And then to kind of gradually say, okay, I've tried this thing and actually that's not for me, and that's not for me, and, you know, kind of narrowing down you know, where my desires lie and where I wanted to go with it.
mm,
It was a little bit challenging, actually, because you know, I'd sort of been brought up in a you know, sort of educated liberal environment, and generally, you know, this kind of idea of narrowing your options, becoming, you know, that sort of, it goes a little bit in against how I was brought up. You know, we should
yeah.
be tolerant and open-minded, and to say actually no thank you has been the part of that journey.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's fascinating because as you're speaking, I'm thinking, yeah, you know, we think about being liberal and broad-minded and open-minded, but within that, there has to be space for choice,
Right.
personal choice,
Right.
and knowing what you choose and what you don't choose,
Yeah.
and what fits you better now than may have fitted you 10 years ago or
Right.
yesterday or whatever. So yeah, that sort of that sweet spot um, of being open, but also being specific about your choices and
Yeah.
what you need and what you want. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, coming from a place of not, oh, I don't like that idea, I won't even try, but from like, oh yeah, no, I've tried that, and that was fine, I don't regret it, but it's not for me.
Mm, mm,
Yeah. So that's been sort of one element of my journey. Another has been to so when I was young, in my sort of uni days, you know, my early 20s, I was very, very much into goth and industrial music, and so that
mhm,
was my first kind of scene and home.
Mm-hmm.
And that very quickly expanded to fetish, kink, and BDSM. There's sort of, it's not exact overlap between those scenes, but a lot of people cross over between them. You know, the look is, you know, fits kind of either. And if you don't have a lot of money as a young person, you can fit in, you know, a goth club or a fetish club just fine.
Yeah, capsule wardrobe does for any occasion.
Right? You know, as long as it's black and shiny, we're all
Yeah.
good. And big boots. Let's not forget the big boots.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of where I started with that, and it was very much a clubbing thing for me. You know, because I was already used to goth clubs and industrial clubs. You know, going from there to fetish clubs was not a big step for me, and so that's really where I learned to play with people and with desire in a sexual way, but not necessarily including intercourse, if you see what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
You know, erotic play of one way or another, that could be you know, that could cover all sorts of things. And although I think initially I started off as a bottom, I very quickly switched. And my comfort zone with that was for public play with people I didn't know to top, for sure.
Yeah.
You know, much easier because I get to control then, and I get to, you know, rely on my skills, which I know. And you know, I don't have to put myself at the mercy of people I've only just met. So you know, obviously that also carried over into my private relationships, but it took me quite a long time to get going with workshops and with learning and with reflecting a little bit more on what I was doing and why it worked. And you know, the sort of conscious sexuality piece, which was much later for me, it was a sort of addition to what I already knew about BDSM, and sort of further informed that. So yeah, kind of moving from a hedonistic place of you know, going out and getting drunk and having music and you know, playing with people and you know, being sort of quite out there. You know, it gradually deepened into you know, something that's it, I mean, the other thing that happened in parallel was the development of my spirituality, which again I got quite an early start with. I was really interested in the topic even as a child, even in school. And you know, but it had been a separate thing that I didn't necessarily integrate into what I was doing in the rest of my life. And so that gradually became a stronger theme. Like, how is there a space where I can play with desire and sexuality and spirituality and, you know, ritual and ceremony and all these things? Those are sort of later additions into my stream. Yeah.
And I mean, I'm in awe because you know, I think I started off reading. You know, that's where I started. I used to read a lot of lesbian BDSM erotica by Pac Lithia, and that was kind of like my education, rightly or wrongly.
Great.
But I didn't know where to go to access. So I wasn't involved in any kind of club scene. I certainly wasn't a goth. I liked country music and folk. So I'm just wondering, like,
Beautiful.
whether there's a natural segue from those into BDSM and kink or not. Maybe not so much.
Trickier.
And a lot of what I was learning and wanted to explore was pre-internet. So if there wasn't, you know, if there weren't flyers up in a local bar or club or cafe or something like that, I wouldn't have known where to go. So I think for me, you know, a lot of this was late 30s, early 40s exploration. And I'd had this whole period of time from my late teens through to my mid-late 30s when I was very reliant on books as my primary source of information. I was lucky if I met someone who was into similar things, and I could either just talk to them about it, swap books, or even get to play together.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of like, oh my gosh, you had all these opportunities, but how did you A, find them, B, make them happen, and C, have the courage to actually pursue,
Yeah.
I guess, or not pursue, but maybe kind of uh,
Throw myself into
throw
them.
yourself into it. And
Because that's
prioritize your
basically,
desire and your
yeah.
lust or whatever it was that was driving you.
Right. I mean, throwing myself into it is really how I got there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I was a big reader in childhood, and spent a very long time in my head. And that's a sort of natural space for me to retreat to.
Mm,
And so I'm also aware that I managed to talk myself out of things a lot. Right, and that's kind of the sort of danger with it, and the developing fantasies is awesome, but at the same time it can then also become this really huge thing
mm,
that becomes quite daunting to even try. So I sort of disengaged from that and just kind of went for it, which is, I mean, I don't know if I necessarily would do it that way today, because I'm a lot gentler with myself now.
mm,
But at the time, that was definitely, how I wanted to, just do it, think about it afterwards,
mm.
was my kind of approach to it. I know. Oh, to be young.
I know.
But also, I mean, I didn't ever get into any scrapes that I couldn't get back out of.
Mm,
And somehow I didn't buy into this sort of fear of people logic. Don't go there, don't go to that dark, dingy bar. I'd be like,
mm.
yes, I'm in that dark, dingy bar. It's like emotional intimacy. That's the scary bit. People actually knowing me. That's really scary. But
Yeah.
being in a dark place where people are doing all manner of strange things is totally fine.
Mm,
I can't explain more than that, really, because I just don't know why I'm wired that way. But that's how it is. So how I found out about it was the internet, I'm afraid to say. So I came online in 1994.
wow.
And very quickly, like by the summer of 95, I'd already found places to hang out on the internet, because I was sort of dimly aware of my interest in kink. Possible. Oh, there was some sort of complicated story with personal ads in a German music mag. Anyway, that sort of piqued my interest, and so the early internet actually had quite a bit of BDSM stuff on it, if you're willing to search it out.
Yeah.
And I was part of an internet community where I ended up, I think, moderating the kink files. I think it was even called the Torture Garden, if I remember correctly. And I became the moderator quite quickly, as
Mm,
just something to do. So it
mm,
was all kind of there quite quickly.
mm,
And immediately after university, I moved to London, which was another big help,
of course.
because, of
Yeah.
course, everything was kicking off in London in the
Yeah.
90s in
Mm,
that sense. All the clubs were there, all the music stuff was happening there. And so I was out a lot, a
mm,
lot, a lot.
mm,
Um, so, with
yeah.
that goth capsule wardrobe.
Yes, I know. I missed a trick there. I really did. I really did. And so the integration of spirituality with
Yeah,
sexuality, was that a different kind of? I mean, you described, like ritual and ceremony.
yeah.
Was that something that was much more personal to you, or was that still a public thing? I say still, but in terms of
Yeah, yeah.
your
Um,
earlier journeys.
oh, that's a difficult one to pin down.
Mm,
I mean, I remember uh, playing with a girlfriend and it being quite deeply ceremonial, before I'd done much theoretical exploring or learning about how one might do things. You know, we were both quite sort of witchy adjacent interested, and so that naturally came into how we did things. But I think the real integration happened gradually from about 2010 onwards, with the workshops I was attending and the community I was involved in London, and the teachers I was meeting there who had explored along those lines and could talk to me about, you know, those things that you've experienced in clubs and in, you know, play. You know, that we have language for them. We can talk about what's happening, and that means that, you know, it doesn't have to be some sort of strange experience that happens somewhere that you can't process even, and that you can't verbalize and you can't you know, discuss with your partner. And you know, it just having access to teaching along those lines really opened up that conversation for me, and helped me process and integrate my own experiences that had happened before. So I think I've always been naturally inclined towards the spiritual, but lacking really lacking language, lacking people to exchange with about that. And I think this is something we touched on when we spoke about this before. Like, a lot of spirituality tends to be this sort of, you know, upper chakra business, you know, it's all this sort of love and light and, you know, this kind of thing that happens. It can be quite disembodied. It can be quite detached from, you know, experiences in the material world, and it becomes a sort of floaty thing up there. And, you know, I touched on earlier, you know, I'd sort of come from a hedonistic space, which is very much in the lower chakras. You know, you're sort of in your base and in your sacral and in your, you know, but it you know, it doesn't come up as far as the throat, so you don't have the language to talk about it, right? And it's kind of a problem, because people have these repeated experiences and kind of go chasing a feeling without being able to kind of pinpoint exactly what it is they're trying to do. And so finding that space where those things can meet, and also doing a lot of heart opening stuff, was how things integrated for me. Yeah.
Incredible. And I really get that about the chakra stuff. And I think that's why when I gave the example of being intimate with the river, you know, in that river space, for me, it was such an embodied, sensational, sensory journey. But for me, you know, nature is very spiritual as well. And I have a very, you know, like, I see the divine in the planet and the world around us. And I really honor and respect our interrelationship with it, our not to be separate from, but, you know, we are part of nature. So for me, something like that experience, and I've been thinking about this as well, and I think, you know, as I said, in the lack of opportunities to go to events, to go to clubs, to have, I mean, thank you for this opportunity, thank you. But with the lack of other opportunities to do that kind of thing at the moment, I'm personally exploring like other ways to make those connections through my chakras. So I get the physical embodied pleasure sensations, and I get to connect with my heart, and I get to express it, and I get to connect with how that is for me in terms of like a divine or a spiritual experience. And I didn't expect to share that, actually. I didn't, because I kind of keep my nature connection work and my sexuality work separate, but increasingly they can't be separated, because, you know, part of my nature is to be a sexual being, and so there is a lot of overlap there. And I think, you know, one of the things that I'm so aware of with all this, you know, you were early on the internet, you were moderating forums, you were in a place where there were events happening. Meanwhile, you know, I was kind of sitting, I don't know where I would have been around that. What was I doing around that time? Oh, I was in a band, and I was finishing my
Hey, there
PhD,
you
so I
go.
was quite busy.
Yeah.
I was in Edinburgh. There wasn't a big scene, you know. There was like one lesbian club. There wasn't
Yeah.
a. I didn't know if there was a kink scene. There may have been.
Yeah,
Never
there is.
came on my radar
Th-
back then.
Yeah, there is an Edinburgh and a Gosling.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Oh no. Um.
My ex-husband was in Edinburgh for a long time, which is how I know that.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I
Mm,
think I just was blinkered, or just didn't know, or didn't
yeah.
wasn't at that stage in my life when I would have even been looking or reaching
Yeah.
for. And I guess what I'm really aware of is, for anybody watching this, like,
Mhm.
what's your top tips or your advice for, if there's something that they want to explore,
Yeah.
be it kink, be it sexual, erotic, spiritual, like, how do we discern which places are going to be good for us? You said when you were younger you just threw yourself in,
It.
but
Yeah.
you know, if we because I think I'm just wondering, like, in the mid late 90s there was less on the internet, so
Yeah.
maybe it was easier to discern in a way, and now, you know, we have information and access coming out of our ears. So how do we even know where to go,
Yeah.
where to begin?
Right.
what would
Yeah.
you what would you
I'm
suggest?
I'm not sure. I don't know how much the internet helps,
Yeah,
honestly,
yeah.
because you can spend a long time overthinking it
Mm,
and not getting going on it and being a bit scared and intimidated by other people's images.
mm,
And I mean, bear in mind that if you're thinking about going to clubs or whatever, obviously the promoter will always have the young, the skinny, the beautifully clad people. And when you actually go there, they are there, yes, but there are all sorts of other people there as well, age ranges, body shapes and sizes. Not everybody has vast amounts of money to dress up with, and most places don't require that.
mm,
What they do require is that you don't turn up in jeans and t-shirt, because you know. So um, speaking specifically to clubs and events and workshops, I think my best advice would be participate.
mm,
Don't be a tourist,
mm,
because that's I think there are a lot of places where we go, and this applies to travel as well as entertainment, where we're the onlooker and
mm,
things are presented to us as a spectacle.
mhm,
And we look at them and then we go away, and then maybe we talk to our friends about it in order to process it. And to me, I mean, it's very much not how I do things. And it is also, I've got drilling sound. Can you hear that?
no.
Great. Then I will simply
Yeah,
ignore that
yeah,
and
sorry.
continue.
I
So
thought
you
my
might need to
washing
cut.
machine had come on its spin cycle. I was like, can you hear my washing machine?
Yeah, one of the lovely neighbors is drilling. Yes, so participation is really, really important,
Mm,
um, because I'll get on to why when you're there it's important. But first, for the other people, it really, really matters not to be othered, not to be stared at, not to be, treated like, a freak show or an animal in a zoo. And I have experienced that over and over, because I would dress up and I would wear outrageous things, and people. I had actually not in a goth or a kink club, but in just a random other London club. I had a young woman come up to me and ask to touch my hair. And she was in jeans and a little tank top, and I was in a 50s ball gown with my hair in big curls, and it was like, no, love, I'm not the entertainment, I'm sorry. you
mm,
know
mm,
and it creates this kind of distance and
mm,
this kind of feeling like you're the paid entertainment, and it's really uncomfortable.
mm,
And I would say this for any scene that I've been in. that's always the feeling, which is why some places will get really kind of like, we will not let you in jeans and trainers. It's for that reason, because people have come and they've kind of been wanting to touch people and stare at them, and it just makes for a horrible environment. That aside, it's also really important to participate from the person who's participating, from their perspective, because so much of these things are experiential. And that's really, really important. And it's it's impossible to get these things just by looking at them from the outside, but watching other people, whether you're there in person or whether you're watching something in a video or whatever. You will never get the full experience, not the presence of it. And you shortchange yourself by not engaging with what is happening, by not bringing yourself. It's vulnerable and scary, yes. Is that for everybody? Even if they've been doing it for 10 years, each interaction still brings that vulnerable space. And so it's a disservice to everybody if you're not engaging on that vulnerable level. It's fine not to know things. It's fine to come and say, I have zero experience of this, I just want to try. But you do have to sort of throw yourself into it a little bit. You do have to commit. It's fine to bring a friend. Maybe don't turn up in a huge group and kind of laugh and point at the other people that are there. That'll be the touristy side. But if you need one person with you for support, your partner or a friend or whatever, that's totally fine. But just be open to what is happening. In a workshop context, you've obviously got facilitators. They will look after you. You're never pushed outside of your boundaries. It's a full consent space, but you do have to sort of say yes and take part.
And I guess that's a really interesting difference between your boundaries and your comfort zone.
Right.
So you won't be pushed beyond your boundaries, that you can set your own boundaries, but maybe there's an opportunity to experience something that may be on the edge of your comfort zone.
Right.
And being open and willing to even consider that.
And also, bear in mind that you may not know what your comfort zone is. No, I mean, this is, I think one way that I was able to throw myself into my experiences as a young woman was that I just had no idea what was and wasn't okay for me, because I figured it wasn't possible to approach that theoretically. The theory could be anything at all, and obviously I'd already grown up with the theory is everything is fair game. So we try it and see what happens.
Wow, thank you. And was there anything else that you had really wanted to share or talk about today that we've not covered yet? My cat's just come in. Look, you might see her in a minute. Oh,
she's coming?
No, she's gone shy.
Oh,
you might hear them. Sorry, distracted.
All right. No, I think I don't have anything else I'm burning to share. Oh, except maybe one little thing. When we spoke before, we had, or I certainly had this sense of having kind of approached journeys from kind of the opposite ends in a way.
Yeah.
Do you remember? We were sort of talking about, start from what is known and kind of expand gradually and slowly and try more things. And mine has been kind of like, oh, here's the pool of everything, right, let's winnow that down a little bit and get to the things that we want. And what I wanted to say about that was that there is no right or wrong way about that, right? It's really it's down to things like opportunity and what risks you're willing to take with yourself. And I'm intensely aware that, I meet a lot of people who, when I start talking about my life, kind of have this awestruck kind of response to it. And I partially understand it, but at the same time, I'm not better than you. I'm not cooler than you in any way, shape, or form. It's just that,
But you were a goth. That's so much cooler.
I mean, I think what I also want to add about that is that I was actually coming from quite a numbed down place as a young woman. I had learnt to suppress a vast amount of my emotions. And so I needed quite intense experiences to feel anything at all. And that's not inherently cool to me. If I need the loudest, hardest music I can find to get me to dance, then I'm not, that's not acknowledging my sensitivity.
Yeah.
It's kind of being quite brutal with myself in one way of speaking. And taking risks, because those were manageable risks for me compared with opening up the emotional realm, the intimacy piece, the actually connecting with people. That was the thing I was much more scared of. And in a way, these kind of outrageous costumes help as well to create distance. I used to have this rubber collar with these giant nails sticking, like actual nails, sharp ends sticking out all around my neck. It was a piece and a half.
Yeah.
Like that was the space I was in. It also had a ring on it, so it could be used to control me if you could get your hand in far enough.
Yeah.
The nails.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that was a collar I couldn't even hug people in because they would get spiked in the neck.
Ouch. And I guess that kind of brings it really nicely back to what I was saying at the beginning about how unique each of our journeys and experiences are. So as you said, I started off identifying as a lesbian age 15, as soon as I kind of knew that was a thing, it was an option, because it fitted me so well. And then over time, my own sexuality, my own identity has become looser, I guess. It was very narrow, and as you say, yours is kind of honed in more into who you are now. And you're right, there's no right or wrong way. We all are on these journeys at our own pace, at our own time, with the opportunities we have and the resources we have. And for me, I hope it never ends, actually. I don't want to get to, I'm 47 now. I don't want to think that, I don't know, I'll get to 50 and then there'll be nothing left to explore, because I'll have been there and done it and know myself so well that there's no scope to be surprised any longer.
Exactly. And that's also, what I think about, when people sort of look at my experience and think, oh, she's seen it all and done it all and there's nothing new I can offer her. And I'm a bit like, no, it's just not how it works. Each person is different. And what we share in presence, is its own unique thing. And, just because I've seen and done some things doesn't mean that I'm necessarily better or that I know everything. That's not true. I hope I never do. For me, it's a growing experience and a learning experience every day. And I hope that continues for decades more, because I think the point at which we say, oh, I've done that, got the t-shirt, we check out a bit. We stop being present. It's sort of like, oh yeah, ticky box, done. And it's life's not like that.
Yeah, if this year has taught us anything, it's that there are surprises around every corner. But thank you so much for sharing your stories with us today, and for giving us some insight into what your unique journey has been and will continue to be in whatever shape or form. So huge thank you for that. And I know you're on social media. Would you be happy for people to connect with you there?
Sure. Yes. So I use the name Scorpion UK everywhere. It's technically it should be Scorpion because it's my star sign in German. Of course I'm a Scorpio, of course I am.
Sexy sign. Yeah, yeah.
So I'm just going to quickly spell that. It's Skorpionuk, and I'm that on Instagram and Twitter and just about anywhere.
Yeah.
Being an extremely online person. So yeah,
Fantastic.
that's the best way to find me. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, thank you once again. As always, it's an absolute pleasure to have any time with you and also to get to
Thank
know a
you.
bit more about you. So thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that with me as well as anyone else
Yeah.
who has a watch of this. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much for inviting me as well, and for being open to sharing your journey and kind of asking good questions. Always so helpful. But also yeah, kind of comparing and contrasting stories is such a joy.
Yeah.
So thank you for engaging on that level.
Thank you. Wonderful. Super. Well, thank you so much. I will stop us here. But yeah, if anybody wants to find out more about Rebecca, Scorpion with a K UK, and I will share this video widely. So please do share it with anyone else that you think might be interested and might like to listen in on our intimate conversation. Thanks then. Bye-bye.